Welcome to Forum 360. I'm your host, Leah Love, where we have a global outlook from a local view. I am so excited for you all to join us today. We are talking to Jenn Kidd, and she is the executive director of the Nightlight Theater, and it is just one of the most amazing gyms in Akron. We're going to learn about the Nightlight, and we're going to learn about her creative and beautiful journey into leadership through her cinematic leadership. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me first, so we can understand leading up into you coming into this role, what was your course and your career path leading up to that?
Oh my gosh, I had a really non-traditional career path. I graduated in the 90s, high school, and I traveled around the country. Like I just jumped on a Greyhound and went and explored, and I kept ending up back in Akron. And I've worked in a ton of creative fields. I worked in the beauty industry, in the music venue industry. I did freelance wardrobe for films up in Cleveland. So I've just had like a really non-traditional path, but all of them have been experiences that I believe led me to where I am now.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So how would you define your role of leadership and cinematic leadership in the nonprofit sector?
Yeah. So the Nightlight, being a nonprofit movie theater, the mission's fostering community connection through cinema. So I just remember mission first, right? So leading within the mission and knowing that community is so important, and including and inviting community to the space, I think is just crucial. So leading a place in a way where you feel good about. I can sleep at night knowing that we, make the right decisions and operate, in just a really respectful, ethical way. And more importantly, we show movies that we love.
And what type of movies do you show?
Yeah, so I describe it as when you watch the Oscars and you're like, what's that? That's what we show before it's Oscar nominated, right?
Yeah. Like, I never heard of that.
Yeah, so like, so we do a lot of like international films, documentaries. Every year we do the Oscar shorts, and it sells out, where it's the animated, documentary, and live action Oscar shorts, and you can watch all of them. But really, we pay attention to film festivals all over the world, and sort of bring films here. And that's how this place started, as a student-run film festival. And we just bring films to Akron that they wouldn't be here otherwise.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do you think are some unique challenges that women would face in leadership roles?
That's a big question.
It's a big
I am so lucky to have brilliant women as my mentors. I'm also lucky to have a board of directors that is led by exceptional women. So I'm really fortunate to have just an amazing support system. And there are a lot of women arts leaders in Akron who are just really fantastic women. It's really nice to have a support system around, of other women facing same challenges, but I feel pretty fortunate.
And what are some of the challenges that, someone could be prepared for if they were moving along this path?
Well, let's say hypothetically you join an organization.
Hypothetically.
And there's, let's say, working with the board of directors. It's just a different world than operating in the for-profit world. Coming into a nonprofit world is different, where there's board of directors, there's a lot of expertise, but I really believe in sticking to your guns. And if you know something's right, if your gut's telling you something right, stick to it. And it has served me well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you had any instances where, your gut was challenged, and how did you handle those situations?
Yeah. Yes, I have actually. And I've had to make some really tough decisions, but in the end, because of the mission and the organization and where I knew we were heading, sometimes you have to make really hard decisions. But I have to remember that a nonprofit isn't me. It isn't any one person. It's its own entity, right? And it's for the community, and it's about the community, and that's what matters, you know.
How do you balance, like you said, you have a lot of creative and artistic background. How did you merge that with like the traditional role and responsibilities?
I like to throw myself into work.
Okay.
I work a lot. Working on work-life balance as we speak. But really, I have a creative job, you know, so there's really unsexy parts of the job. I don't know the right word to use, but we'll use that, right? Like budgets and financing and all of this, but I also get to, you know, the really important parts. But I also get to choose programming. I've been fortunate where all of my jobs and all of my roles in leadership have been in creative fields. So I think creatively, right? There's a lot of like, well, we've never done it that way. Let's think creatively and think differently and move in that direction, you know?
So when you have those conversations, how do you continue to steer that? Because there are times where I know, like I've been in certain situations and it's like, yeah, this is how we've always done it. And sometimes I can't figure out how to kind of change that course so that we can try a new way to see if that will work better.
Yeah.
You know, how do you handle those situations?
I think there's only one way to find out, and it's to try. And I think that sometimes there are people who don't want to change, who don't, you know, think things have to be this very specific way. But I think change doesn't happen when you've always done it the same way. I know that sounds like common sense, but it's true. Like a lot of organizations, a lot of places are like, you can't do that. And it's like, but we can actually, like, it's okay. Like, don't be scared. Like, you know, and for me, like some of the changes that we've made have been like the best decisions for the theater. Yeah.
So how do you measure your impact or success as you're growing every year?
We've seen, well, first off, I have an amazing, amazing staff at the theater. I have my dream team. It's awesome. And everybody's been there for over 2 years. We've had 0 turnover since then. Everybody who's there works respectfully, works collaboratively, thinks about the bigger picture, right? We're doing this expansion and everybody's like, how can we do this? How can we make this go smoother? Like, everybody works together and cares greatly. And that to me is like a huge measure of success, because I want everybody who works there to feel good, to want to go to work, to want to work with everybody else. But then I do believe that that transitions to people who come to the theater. Like, to me, it's a safe place. It's a welcoming place. I want people to feel comfortable bringing other people there. I want people to feel comfortable coming by themselves. That to me is like a measure of success. So we've had huge audiences turn out. We're a 42-seat theater, one room. Like, it's a small, small space, right? But since 2014, we've had 100,000 people. And this year alone, since January 1st, you know, let's say the first quarter of this year, we've had 6,000 people come to the theater, which has never happened, right? What does our audience look like? What do our films look like? Like, I just think opening that up has really shifted things in a way that I feel very proud of.
So you mentioned teamwork and working collaboratively. What has been some of the ways you've been able to continue to keep people united? Because I know that right now, turnover is a huge issue everywhere. So what would you tell other business owners or people in leadership to keep that environment and culture? How would you tell them to cultivate that?
I think respect your people, respect your staff, be open to criticism, be open to conversations, find out what people's strengths are, find out what they want to do, right? Like, is there something this person has always wanted to do that's pretty darn close to their lane? Like, invest in your people, you know, be it, and I'm not talking about like a pizza party, like really care about your people in a way where you create a, just a workplace that, you know, it's, I hear about like people not being able to hire people, people not being able to keep people. And I'm so fortunate that we don't have that issue, but I also believe in like a really healthy, respectful work environment. It makes a difference.
It really does. Can you speak to working with budget constraints in your
Yes.
team?
So I don't have a nonprofit background, right? I came into this from creative fields, from for-profit industries, but I very much am up for a challenge always. I like puzzles. I like solving problems. I think strategically about like, okay, this is where we are and this is where we need to be. How do we get there? You know, and the road may be windy, but the budget is not windy. The budget usually stays like where it needs to be, right? So what are your priorities, right? And what do we absolutely need to like make things work and stand by that, but also realize that there are other things that are like, okay, that's fun, not necessity, you know? But our organization is, I'm going to say, doubling in size within the next year.
Okay.
But something I realized when I came on board in 2021 was we have to lay that foundation, because if we double in size without that structure and that foundation there, it's going to crumble. You know, and everybody, the theater's amazing, and so many people worked hard to get it up to where it is now. Like, I would not be able to do what I've done if it hasn't, you know, if it hadn't been so good for so long. But there were things where I'm like, okay, for us to put this much extra load on it, like we need to restructure some things.
And tell me again, how long have you been in this position?
June of 2021, so less than 3 years, 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you are doubling in less than 2.5 years. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thanks. Thank you.
And if you are just joining us, we are talking to Jenn Kidd, who is the executive director of the Nightlight Theater in Akron, Ohio, about cinematic leadership. Now, piggybacking off of that, how do you create connections and build relationships for your funders and investors?
Honest conversations. I have a different perspective on fundraising. Maybe I don't have a background in it, right? But I run an organization, a nonprofit that I love dearly, and so do so many other people, right? So I think a lot of people are like, oh, you show movies. And it's like, no, we do so much more. We do community outreach. I work with Akron Public Schools as a community and career center, middle school liaison. So they learn about arts nonprofits through us. We welcome students. They learn about movies. They learn about nonprofits. Like, there's so much more. But really, it's a gathering space.
Tell us all that you do outside of that, because I didn't know that part. So,
So there's you know, the theater, we don't just show movies. Like, there's other ways to, I believe that film is one of the best learning tools, right? You can learn anything. And aside from that, you can explore anywhere, you can go anywhere. It is such an amazing tool, right? You can see other parts of the world, you can learn other perspectives. So for me, like the connecting cinema, like connecting community through cinema happens. Like, people come and there's conversations that happen and relationships that are built. So to me, the mission and the organization kind of speaks to itself, right? But there's this other thing about the Nightlight that's so special, right? It was started by University of Akron students 10 years ago. We're 10 years old. We're still like a baby. We're not a legacy organization, right? But it's like this little theater that could. Like, we came out of COVID at half capacity, and now we're doubling our size because I feel like it's a thing of hope, right? Like, this organization, Akron does want this. We do want cool things. We do want, you know, the fact that our city can support an independent cinema is amazing to me.
So back up, leading through the pandemic, you know, you were kind of little past that. What was that space like, and how did you manage any of those challenges?
Oh my gosh. So I was running a music venue when the pandemic hit, and I was hyper aware of what was going on because I was a little bit of germaphobe. So I was paying attention very, you know, so I was running this music venue and I was telling the owner, I was like, we're going to have to shut down. They're like, do you think it's real? And I was like, yes, like I do. So I shut the venue down in, was it March 13th was the last show. And 1 week later, there was supposed to be a show that was sold out with 400 tickets sold, and I canceled it. I was like, we cannot do this. We cannot do it. So I slept better at night because I made the right decision. Yeah. Like, I believe in keeping people safe, right? So even I started at the Nightlight 5 days before we reopened from the pandemic after a very long interview process. I was so, like, I found my dream job during the pandemic, like, you know. But I started 5 days after, and I'm like, let's go, but let's open at half capacity. And I had to make a decision. I did mandatory masks for a long time. I did proof of vaccine, and I stand by it. You know, it was there were a few calls, a few angry emails, but I still stand by it. Like, when you have 40 people gathered in a room, like, I don't want anything to happen, right? So we have like an amazing HVAC filtration system, but even with that, still just taking any protective measure, it's a very different world now. Like, it's very different. Nobody came out of this the same. I don't care what people say. Yeah. Right? So I think leading with integrity, and integrity means keeping people as safe as you can in this situation that none of us have ever had to deal with in our entire lives. You know, I lost some family, very close family during the pandemic, and it shifted the entire world. And I think about that often, like, at any second, anything can change. So how do we live in a way where every second counts, you know?
I know, as a consumer, that was one of my bigger problems as well as the owner too, because you're not just trying to run the business, you have to keep these people safe. And it is making the tough decisions. So tough. And it's never going to please everybody. No. But at the end of the day, like you said, you have to be okay with, I did what I could, you know, like.
We did the best with the information we had at the time.
What we had, you know. Because it's hard. Yeah. I know we had to go down to the capacities, the masks, the extra Purelling, the body count control. I mean, it was just social distancing. It was a lot that we had to do. Yeah. So I respect it, and you know, congratulate you for making it through there.
Man, it's still, I mean, there's just repercussions that we're still facing, but I think also people have never needed socializing more. I know that sounds weird, but like during the pandemic, like, all I wanted to do was go to the Nightlight and watch a movie before I was hired, because I've been going there since it opened. Before then, all I wanted to do was like, God, I wish I could go to the Nightlight and watch a movie. And that's what I thought about. And then it worked out.
Yeah. Now you get to live there, basically.
Yeah, basically.
What do you think are some of the biggest opportunities that you have in your leadership role, or in leadership in general? What are some opportunities that people have?
I think it's an opportunity to show people how you can lead with compassion and lead with kindness and still be successful. I think you don't have to be a tyrant. I don't know anybody who is, but I'm just saying. I think there's a way to be welcoming and inclusive and lead with authenticity. I know that's a big buzzword right now, but I think it's true. Like, I just show up, I'm who I am. You know what I mean? I don't change when I'm talking to somebody else. I don't change when I'm doing this. Like, this is who I am. This is how I live. Like, I walk my talk. And I just think there's a lot of examples you can set, and especially to younger generations.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, what are some goals and aspirations you have for?
Oh my gosh. So my Roman Empire right now is this Nightlight second screen. I will not sleep until it's finished. So by the time this airs, hopefully we'll have made an announcement about a start date for construction. But that has been just a year and a half of like knowing this amazing opportunity and possibility. And it's not just like, yes, we can show 2 movies, but also we can hold all these conversations. We can welcome all these organizations. You can use our space for this, you know, collaboration. Like, there's just, I'm so excited for it. And I think that's one of the biggest things, but it really is exciting to take an organization into that next level and to do it in downtown Akron and to do it where it's like there for the long run, right? So I think about, I want kids who grow up not to have to leave, to have creative opportunities. I want there to be things to do that aren't just bars. I want there to be interesting places and experiences in Akron that you don't have to leave for to get.
So how would you say that the art scene in Akron has changed over like the last 5 years?
Last 5
like,
years.
where do you see
Let me
it?
think about this.
Where do you see it going?
It's so strong. There's so much talent here. It's wild how much talent there is here. But also, like the Akron Art Museum, John Fumey, who's running it, is a wonderful person. I work closely with Heather Meeker from Summit Art Space. Like, there's all of these organizations sort of collaborating and talking. I'm on the board for Rubber City Jazz Fest and Open Tone Music. So all partnering for Rubber City Jazz Fest. There's just things going on here that I'm going to say are world class, and they're in Akron, and they're in our backyard. Mm-hmm. You know, there's so many passionate people who care about this, mm-hmm. you know, and just really just keep paying attention. I think things are growing and heading in a direction that I believe in. And even if I can only control one corner of downtown Akron, one little corner and one building, like, that's my contribution.
Rock it out.
But I think it's bigger than that,
yeah.
right? I think there's other, you know, talking to each other and realizing, like, there was one weekend where there were like 5 things in one night that I had to choose between, and I'm like, there's too much going on. Like, like, I don't know what to choose, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so another buzzword is self-care.
Yeah.
How do you balance self-care so that you can be an effective leader?
That's a really relevant question to me right now. I am getting better at it, right? I used to be in the beauty industry. Like, I'm familiar with self-care, right? Mm-hmm. And I would talk my talk and not walk that about, you know, self-care. I took up gardening last year and found that that was something that I really enjoyed, was getting my hands in dirt. And then this winter I was like, oh, I can't garden. What do I do? You know? But I watch movies to relax, right? So my job is movies, mm-hmm. and then I watch movies to relax. But really, I'm so fortunate to have an amazing support system at home. I love my husband and my son, who's in college at the University of Akron, and we have like 4 pets. And I just love being at home. Like, that's my place. We enjoy being around each other and spending time together. So to me, that's self-care. Mm. And I'm very fortunate to have a home that I love.
That is so awesome. Yeah. Okay, get one more question in about the organization. So a lot of nonprofits have to ensure transparency.
Yeah.
So how do you explain that? How do you show it, as well as the accountability that would come with, like, financial or decision making mm-hmm. in those different areas? How do you do that? Yeah,
I have a board that holds me super accountable. Okay. My board of directors is awesome. I'm very, very lucky. And I just believe in transparency with the staff too. I'm not like having secret meetings. I'm not doing this. Like, I want them to understand, like, here's where you work and here's the big picture. And also customers, we're a nonprofit, right? Here's our 990, here's this, here's that. And I'm just really open to conversations. I don't believe in like secrets around this. You know what I mean? I think we're so lucky that the Nightlight exists, and I want it to keep existing. And I think that that's how you do it. It's just being transparent. Yeah.
So if you could give a piece of advice to someone who is getting ready to make this life change and transition into a whole different industry, what would you tell them as words of encouragement?
You know, something I found, I had a bit of, before I started, like, I don't come from the nonprofit world. I'm familiar with it, you know, but what I will say is I have 20 plus years of people experience, problem solving experience, strategic thinking, strategic planning, and helping other problem solve. There are experiences that you'll have that you may not think are relevant, but they will be relevant, and they do make a difference. And I think sometimes it's helpful having that other experience that you can pull in to that. I think there really is a lot you'll be able to pull from a different leadership or world that you can pull into this.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And in like 30 seconds, tell me, what was your favorite movie and why?
Okay. Oh gosh. Let's see. Growing up, I really loved Annie a lot. I memorized front and back. I like know it. I had a lonely childhood, so I spent a lot of time watching movies, right?
Okay.
So I would watch reruns on TV, and I've always used movies as like a magical make-believe world, and I just think there's so many possibilities. My favorite one of all time, though, is Amadeus, the 1980s movie.
What's that about? Or why did it resonate with you?
My mom was a music teacher. I grew up around classical music, and it's like a campy, funny, brilliant version of that.
Okay.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll show it soon.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Oh my
much
gosh,
for joining us
thank you.
today. I hope that you all learned a little bit more about leadership in the nonprofit sector, how you can make a transition from anything. It's never too late to start something
That's
new, and just trust your gut outside of everything else. Thank you for joining us. I am your host, Leah Love. Thank you for tuning into Forum 360, where we have a global outlook from a local view. Have a great week.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.